Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and we're
Oh my gosh, not sure what happened there, but good thing that I'm here in the house. Yes, welcome to USA Global TV and Business Talk Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is the Business Talk Show. This is our 86th episode of this particular show. This week we have 25 live broadcasts, and I'm so excited to share the stage with my dear friend, mentor, coach. This guy's been with me since the beginning. He saw something and said, yes, I want to support you. And I cannot thank him enough. His name is CINI. Let's welcome him to the show. Hey, Al, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Dr. JACALYN, and thanks, as always, for a very gracious introduction. I appreciate that. It's been 86?
86 episodes that we've done together. We were rapping with Dr. JACALYN. I think before that, we were two cans with a string, and now
yeah, we've up-leveled tremendously. I mean, your brand has evolved into something wonderful. You should be really proud of what you've done.
Well, thank you. I don't know why the opening shut off. This never happens. What do we have? 1,000 broadcasts. That's never happened.
But you know what? This is such an important conversation. The technical details aside, I don't think anybody really understands consciously how they're perceived by anybody else anymore. I think especially since we've been Zooming with each other rather than meeting in person, we've lost sight of the importance of establishing a presence and making making an entrance. I don't think anybody's really paying very much attention to that. We have Dr. Miluna Fausch today to talk about that. I think it's going to be a great conversation.
I think so as well. She is a Forbes book author and an executive communication coach, and she has extensive experience as a professional in the entertainment, in the creative arts space, which I think is fantastic. So before we bring her out, though, Al, I want to spotlight you, as I always do. And I want you to share a little bit about the work that you do at BCAT. And also, you are one of our executive presenters here on our Talking Heads platform. You're also one of our elevated listeners, which means that you really care. And you've got a heart and extensive experience that you share with our audience week after week on this show, as well as the Talking Heads. So please do tell us more about that.
Well, thank you, Dr. JACALYN. The whole point of brand and culture alignment, for us anyway, brand is behavior, and culture really is what drives. It's the motivational basis for that behavior. And when you align your people, when you align the way you behave with the way you feel about the way you behave, and all that is tuned into the purpose you serve, you become much more effective at what you do. And that really is the whole point of BCAT, what we call the Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit. As a talking head, I'm after today, I'll be 4 episodes in to explaining how we handle brand and culture alignment. That program's coming up at 3. Right here on USA Global TV, and I'm excited about that, and always appreciative of the opportunity to reach your audience with what we do. So thank you, Dr. JACALYN, and this is just fun for me. Is it fun for you?
It is fun. The production piece is very stressful, and as I mentioned before, we had 3 really emotional shows. I've got a whole thing of hankies here now. So
good for you.
But I do love what I'm doing. And Al, there's so much about communicating in the world and how we're perceived, to your points. And Dr. Miluna is going to enlighten us on a number of things. She's also written a book that we're going to be talking about. So I'd like to just bring her out and let's get the show going.
Great.
Welcome, Dr. Miluna Fausch. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, great seeing you, Dr. Miluna. And, do you mind if I start?
No, go ahead.
People fuss around with their Zoom backgrounds. I mean, and Zooming, because that's how people are meeting these days. And I mean, even with the pandemic kind of receding into the rearview mirror, people are still preferring to meet virtually, even when they're local to each other, and which means this is now the new normal. We're never going back. I don't think, in my experience, that people handle Zoom presence very well at all. What's your experience in that, Dr. Miluna?
Agreed. Now that, as you mentioned in the introduction, now that we're not meeting in person, We've seemed to have lost our presence in some of our manners. Yes. We
Hmm.
used to shake hands and make an entrance. We're watching you come in. We are gathering clues and cues, easy for me to say, about your presence and your confidence. And do you walk into that room knowing who you are and setting that stage? I find that a lot of the Zooming is folks don't want to be on camera, so we're losing the visual cue. We don't have an atmosphere, a background. We show up perhaps not professionally groomed like we should be. It's really not a professional arena.
And
Really
people
good
need to be,
points.
but even though the bar seems to have been lowered, in my opinion, it really hasn't been lowered. You're communicating with people all the time, even if you're not aware of it. Isn't that right? So if my hair is a mess and my shirt is wrinkled, and actually I'm looking at myself in the monitor, I'm actually pretty much describing myself. But if my hair is a mess and my shirt is wrinkled, and I'm in a Zoom meeting with you, I'm pretty much telling you that you don't matter enough for me to bother to get dressed up, aren't I?
That's exactly right. I have seen people in t-shirts and eating
Mm-hmm.
on the phone, literally on the phone while being on the Zoom meeting. So what are we saying? It's what you said. I don't respect myself enough to show up, and I maybe think I'm more important. My time matters, but what about you? It is the ultimate disrespect. And we really want to be mindful of this. You are being seen on what I call the Hollywood squares. We are seeing you.
Great point. And I want to talk a little bit about what a Forbes book author is. What does that mean for people who are thinking, is it Forbes magazine? What is that?
It is. It's the Forbes brand. It's Advantage Media, and it's part of the Forbes umbrella, the company that we all know and love, Forbes Publishing.
Congratulations on that. That's outstanding.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Woo!
Great.
And Dr. Miluna, as an executive communication coach, how do you work with your clients?
It's a number of ways. It could be the voice. Perhaps the voice is down in the throat or not having any richness or carrying power, especially over this camera. We've still got to connect virtually. It is setting intentions for each audience. Are you addressing the board? Is this your investors? Is this the public media? Is this speaking with your employees? It is definitely the words we're choosing. Removing the ums, the ahs, the likes, the you knows, all of the filler words that are really static interference. They just muck up the works and muck up the clarity. It's teaching folks the art of the pause. It's teaching folks how to answer, question, and answer. Knowing how to be vulnerable and say, I don't know the answer to that. It's stage presence, virtual presence on camera, and really understanding the power of putting together beautiful languaging, which I call the 6 C's of language arts: consciousness, clarity, courage, courtesy, compassion, and inclusion with a capital C.
And let's go over those. I'm going to start with the last one. Maybe especially because of Zoom, but even before Zoom, you'd go to a meeting, there'd maybe be 15 people in the room, and whoever was running the meeting had their favorites. They always did have their favorites. There are a couple of people in the room that they're comfortable with, that maybe they have lunch with every day. And what you end up feeling like is that you're part of a conversation among 3 or 4 of the 15 people in the room, but really not a part of it yourself. How do you, and this is, by the way, I'm talking about corporate leaders. I'm talking about people in executive leadership positions who ought to know better. They're half the time, they're not even aware that they're leaving people out, are they?
I don't think they are. I don't think that we understand. We don't have the self-awareness of that. It's an informality. Also, most people say, hey guys. Well, we're not guys. It's a derogatory term for men. So there are men in the room, women, folks who identify otherwise. And as you said, if each person in the room is not welcomed, at the minimum, hello, everyone. Hello, sales team. Hello, fantastic people. And if it's a small group, you can certainly, each person look in their eye, call them out by name, let us know that we are seen and heard. We really need to do a better job at that, as you said.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to throw you a trick question, because I know executives that are terrified of meeting their people, especially at random. And they're afraid of their people. And one of the things they're afraid of is that they won't remember their names. So there's this fear that I'll walk out into the conference room and I'll see 3 people that I know work for me, and their names just won't come to me. So rather than run the risk that might happen, I just won't leave my office. I'll stay in my office all day. I know it sounds pathetic, but I think I'm describing a very large percentage of corporate leaders who really, how do you make people comfortable with the fact that they're not perfect?
Not perfect?
That they're not perfect, that I'm not going to remember
Yes.
people's names sometimes. And I need to be able to just say, I'm really sorry, but maybe you can help me out here. I mean, how do they overcome that fear?
It's a great point. When you're welcoming, just have a message, hello, everyone. If you don't know your people and you have a huge company, completely understandable. If you run into someone in the elevator or one of those places, I would hope you remember their face, but perhaps not. I would just say something like, please remind me of your name. Just remind me of your name, and have the heart and vulnerability to do that. Because I think we understand. I'm great at names. A lot of people are not. They do not remember. So we simply just ask, remind me of your name.
So what's your name? What do you think of that? What's your name again? Dr. JACALYN? What's
I agree with that, because I'm not good at names either, but you have a choice. The choice is you just address them in the general, or you take that extra step. I'm really sorry. I know we've met before. I'm not good with names. Please remind me of your name. I really want to put it to memory. And then it's like, oh, okay, they're vulnerable and they care. So I feel like it's a win-win.
It does show that they care. And if you're humble enough to ask that, that's fantastic, is it not? I think these are the new leaders. We can tell if you care, if you're in a hurry, if you're distracted, we will feel it. It makes a difference. I just want to know the boss cares.
Exactly.
Well, I know an awful lot of people who fuss around with their Zoom backgrounds a lot. They work really hard on whether they look like they're at the beach or whether they look like they're in the space shuttle. I mean, they screw around with that stuff all the time. But what they really need more than anything is a Zoom foreground, some sense of presence in that frame that they're in, where it actually matters who they are and not what I see behind them, if you know what I mean.
That is so true. We can have the most dazzling, incredible background in the world, but if I'm not showing up and I'm not seeing you and I'm not comfortable with myself, we are not connecting at the level that we could. The heart is not open, or the talking head. We don't need that. We could have read your PowerPoint. We need you to be with us. We're here for you. We want to hear your story, your experience. We love stories.
That was going to be my next question. When you look at the 6 points that you have, storytelling is important because it makes us relatable. It makes us real. What are your thoughts about that, Doctor?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things I usually do with all of my executives and leaders is that very thing. And some of them who are more left brain, we'll call them engineer types, sometimes more introverted, they are not good at telling a story within a couple of minutes. So I will literally set a timer for 2 minutes and we'll work on something they know very well or something they love. And then we'll move into more of the improv and the role playing that we do in show business. That's a huge part of my background and training. And have them speak off the cuff and tell the story about an object or their childhood or something they love. And they will begin to understand that just reciting facts doesn't work. We want to hear your story. We want to know what you care about. Then we can connect, relate, understand, all of those goodies.
No. Okay, so Dr. Miluna, if Will Smith had you sitting on his shoulder at the Academy Awards, just to pick a topical moment that we're all completely inundated with now, would you have whispered in his ear, "Take it with a smile and stay in your seat," or when you walk up there, don't slap him, punch him? What would your advice to him have been?
Stay in your seat. Address it later.
How
Anytime we're
important is it?
reacting and doing things, it's probably not going to turn out so well as taking a moment, responding, doing our best to stay in love, patience, peace, until we can really address it.
So that mother's advice, count to 10?
I think so.
And
Yeah.
what do you do while you're counting to 10? How do you help me with that? Dr. Miluna, I think I need your help. I'm asking for a friend.
Oh, you're asking for, yes, that friend. Yes.
Yeah, there's this friend of mine who has this reaction problem where he'll get all riled up and sometimes he'll act in a way that he later regrets. And so what do I tell my friend? It's not me, I swear. What do I tell this friend of mine to do while he's counting to 10 to keep his emotions from taking him someplace he really doesn't want to be?
It's so true. We cannot take those words back and that reaction. Some of us are very passionate. We have tempers. We have emotions. It's to really breathe. It's to stay in the body. It's to think of your big toes. Think of your big toes, wiggle them, stay in that body, stay in that heart space. And there are really two things that we can live by: fear or love. So we can do our best in those 10 seconds to witness what we just observed. If we can remove it from ourselves just a little bit, process it, do our best to respond in a love space, not fear, not violence, not aggression, we might find that it means something completely different than we thought it did.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
And
really.
something that I've noticed, I teach people how to listen at an elevated level, is when you do exactly what you just said, you can watch the other people become uncomfortable because there's that silence and you're processing. They're like, what's going on? Why isn't she saying anything? It does take work and it takes practice to not respond. I'll give an example. Someone sent me a message last week and I saw it in the middle of the night because I'm always checking my phone because we're a global platform and whatnot. So I was very put off by this message and I started leaving a voice note right away. And I thought, oh no, delete. You never want to. So I calmed myself down about 5 minutes and I started again. I thought, no, delete, because you're still emotional. And I waited 3 days and I looked at it, and that person, I don't think meant it the way I first took it. But had I responded, it could have taken something to a whole new level. And that would have been on me because of the way I reacted.
Thank you. It is our responsibility. We get to choose how we respond or react. And as you mentioned, email is tricky or written because we can so misunderstand that. Any tricky, serious, difficult conversation should really be done on the phone or on Zoom or in person. Our relationships are too meaningful and fragile. And the damage is done. I can never take back that reaction I had, that thing I said. It's been heard. It's energetically out there. I can't call it back. We are responsible. I say we have the responsibility and the joy to communicate beautifully, to speak well, understand what we're saying, and be aware of the reaction, the response, of the other party. You can watch if someone's hurt. You can see that.
I have another friend.
I'm glad you have great friends.
I know, they're really
This
great
is so
people.
important.
They mean well. But I have this other friend who is maybe a little bit brittle when it comes to taking criticism. Happens to be a kind of a boss of a company. And whenever anybody in the company steps up to him and says, this happened, but it shouldn't happen, it could have been prevented, he feels like he needs to be very defensive and argue that these things happen and that they're doing their best, and basically says, don't ever criticize me again. I don't care. Things around here run the way they run. And that's all there is to it. And this is a friend, trust me, and this actually is a friend. This is somebody I know, and I've talked with him repeatedly about it because it really does limit his ability to adapt. I mean, there are all kinds of things he could be doing better if he just listened to the things that he could be doing better, listen about them. And he just refuses to do that. How do you, actually, this is a question maybe for both of you. When you've got somebody who just does not listen, especially to something they don't want to hear, what advice do you have for them? How do you deal with that? Tricky,
isn't it? Tricky. It's a bit of ego wrangling, isn't it? Because the ego is just protecting, the ego is just doing its job. But yes, when we cannot hear feedback, and of course it's tricky how it was delivered. I'm a very sensitive soul, and there have been times that I have been so hurt. So I understand, and I pause and breathe and do my best to begin to ask questions. And I think when we hear something that we don't like, or that we take personally, or we feel like it's our fault, to ask more questions. I would begin maybe with gratitude. That'll shift the energy. Thank you for sharing that with me. And it's hard for me to hear. So let's unpack that. I want to understand. Tell me more about that and how you see us solving that problem and doing a better job on behalf of the entire company.
I love that. That's great.
It is. It's great. It's great advice, but so rarely followed by so many people.
Yeah. I think it's just encouraging them. This is not meant to hurt you personally. I mean, you can always soften the delivery from our side of it. I need to give you some information. It may be hard to hear. Are you okay with that? And then deliver it in the clearest, most kind, compassionate way. And that may be soft. It may be loud, depending on how the person can hear it. If they're more aggressive, I'm probably going to be a little robust in my delivery so that I can ensure I'm more likely to be heard and understood. And if I take that risk, then the chances are we can deepen that relationship, believe it or not, and we can get to more deep ground and make more difference in that company.
I agree with that. I think the only thing I would add is definitely start with gratitude. Hey, Al, I really like working here. I'm really appreciative of this job. Thank you so much. In my experience, I'm having a challenge with XYZ process. I wasn't sure if you're aware of that. Something you're aware of? I mean, we could role play the whole thing out, but basically you start off with a compliment and that you're not attacking the person. As soon as someone attacks you, then you're like, the person immediately becomes defensive and then shuts down because it's just, they don't want to hear it because you're attacking them.
Thank you. Yeah. That's exactly it. None of us like to be attacked. We are way more sensitive than we're letting on.
That's very true. We might put on suits of armor that are invisible to everyone else, but in the meantime, they're there.
There's a lot going on down there. Good.
We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, I want us to talk about leaders and how they use their voice and how they could be using their voice. You had mentioned in the beginning that a person's voice makes an impression. And if we come across like this or like this, then people can just tune out. And I know that you work with your clients to help them realize how to use their voice. And we want to talk about your book as well. How does that sound?
Can't wait.
Fantastic.
Good.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to take a look at a couple of clips from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. Stay with us right here.
The session that we had with BCAT was really entertaining and enlightening. We were able to put together some very specific steps that we as individuals can take, and it was really fun to all come together and see sort of where we're going as a team and how we can all get there together.
We had a tremendous experience with the BCAT partners. One of the challenges that we have as an organization is to make sure that we have the right people in the right chairs doing the right thing. To do that well, you have to have synergy. You can try to dream up ways to make sure that your group does that, or you can rely on experts. We would recommend BCAT partners to anybody who's looking to take their organization to the next level.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to Story Garden. Your host, Diane Boehm. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Diane Floyd Boehm tells wonderful stories that warm the heart, spark the imagination, and unite people and families across generations. For children, Diane's Harry the Camel connects with all of us who've ever wondered how different our lives might have been if only we'd been born something better, like a wonderful horse instead of an ordinary camel. In the end, we all learn along with Harry that there's nothing better than just being yourself. Diane's Little Girl in the Moon looks down on earthbound children and wonders if they know she's just like them. A story of love, home, and the bond between mother and daughter, its powerful theme that we're each of us different yet all of us the same plants a seed in children that promises to blossom within a loving and trusting grown-up. Diane's new biography, Rise, recounts the experiences of her grandmother, Ruby, to reveal the hidden strength of the human spirit. Ruby's story inspires all of us to become the best versions of ourselves. You'll find all of Diane's delightful books and much more at dianefloydboehm.com. Visit dianefloydboehm.com. That's dianefloydboehm.com.
Take a moment.
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 Well, the technology gods are not with us today. I don't know what is going on. This has never happened, but we took a moment and we're back. So welcome back to USA Global TV and to Business Talk Radio. This is the Business Talk Show. We're here with Al CINI and Dr. Miluna. We're so happy to have you back. Thank you.
Such a pleasure.
So before the break, we were teeing up the idea of how leaders can effectively use their voice to communicate. And we also want to have you do a reading from your book. So let's start with the voice.
The voice. I think what I want CEOs, leaders, movers and shakers, executive directors to know is that you're in the spotlight. When I was growing up, you didn't know the CEO of companies. You didn't see them. They didn't do television commercials. And today's leaders are in the spotlight, seen and heard, under scrutiny. You're being watched. And there's incredible power there. So I want executives to know, and our listeners and watchers, that you have the ability to set the tone and set the atmosphere. You have the ability to inspire, to set clear intentions. Why am I here? Am I here to educate today? Am I here with a State of the Union address? Am I here to get elected for office? Am I here to raise money? We need to know why we're there and why we're speaking. And I like to say the boss needs to talk like the boss. You need to speak at the level of your position, your education, your knowledge, your credibility. The voice should have richness and carrying power, as we spoke of. If it's down here in the throat, down and back, if it's high, I'm high pitched, and why aren't you taking me seriously? We tune out. We have a hard time listening to that. We prefer a lower pitch in the Western culture, and we want you, especially if you show up looking a certain way. Let's say you're polished and professional, and you open the voice. What if you saw me and then I said, "Hi, I'm Dr. Miluna"? You would wonder what the problem is. Why is she speaking like an adolescent girl? So it's understanding how much power we really have. And yes, our voice, that one voice in 7.9 billion people, can make a difference.
That's really important. We live in kind of an informal age, Dr. Miluna, where people are very colloquial with each other sometimes. Aside from modulating your voice and managing the pitch and delivering a voice that's consonant with the way you're dressed and the position you hold, you got to be careful about the language you use sometimes too, don't you? I mean, we're really comfortable with slang and maybe too comfortable with profanity in our language. I don't think people really understand the impact that some of those words have on an audience. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Completely agree. We are, in my opinion, way too informal. The US is informal, Canada, certain countries, Australia, New Zealand. But here we are on global TV. Most of our teams are spread out around the world. We are dealing with informal, formal cultures, different beliefs, cultures, religions, backgrounds. And when, as I mentioned earlier, we say, "Hey guys," you're leaving out just about everybody. Now, if you're in Southern California and you're speaking with surfboard owners, stores, or folks that are out doing that, that could be appropriate. Informal language, their language could be. But if I'm addressing my international teams that are in 5 different spots around the world, and I call somebody, let's say in Germany, by their first name, "Hey, Miluna," that's pretty offensive. Now, their culture is changing a bit, and I do carry a Swiss passport. When we first went to Switzerland, you would never, ever in a professional setting address a person by their first name. It was Mr. or Doctor or whatever title. And then as you got to know the person, you would be invited out by the other person, especially if they're senior to you, for coffee, for a drink. And then you would be invited to be on a first name basis with them. And that'd be more on a personal level. I personally love that because you've earned it and you've got to know them a little more. So I want to invite us to understand the formality of the cultures. We need to meet in the middle so that we are not leaving people out, excluding people, not meaning to offend people, but we are, because we're too informal and we have not given them the respect of their position and their title.
Dr. Miluna, I want to salute you for that, because we talked a little bit about this backstage, which was, you have a doctorate, I have a doctorate. Sorry, Al, there's still time. But people throughout my career would not address me as Dr. KERBECK. They would not. They actually, I was told by 2 people at my company, "No, I'm not going to call you Dr. KERBECK." And I thought, how offensive. I spent almost 7 years and $125,000 to get this. And that's how you react. So when I started this platform, I decided I was going to be Dr. JACALYN. And I can't tell you how many times someone will come on, a stranger, someone, and they'll start calling me Jackie. And I think, no. Al Al knows me, right? But for someone who doesn't know me, they can't call me that, but they do. So
On,
what
on
do
the
you,
air, you're Dr. JACALYN. I mean,
yes,
that's important because it's part of your brand and it's how you choose to be known to the world, and people need to respect that. I
exactly.
think Dr. Miluna's point is that we just generally, I guess we feel like we're making people part of us or including them more, but all we're really doing is dragging them down to a level. We're reducing them and minimizing them by not respecting the work that they've done.
It's exactly true. It is a courtesy. It is a maturity. It is very immature to just, I mean, for people to call you Jackie, see, that's offensive to me. It's too familiar. It's not respecting you. As you said, we've earned it. And I know the male doctors, some of them that I go to, that we're not on a first name basis. And if I said, "Hey, Jeff," I'm sure I would be corrected.
Exactly.
And women need to do that very same thing. We are not less than, as you said, years, thousands of dollars in this education. And clearly we value it. We care about it. And we're asking other people to rise to that occasion as well. It's not okay to assume. When someone says, "What should I call you?" I so appreciate that. It shows their intelligence, their emotional intelligence, and that they care enough to ask and speak their very best. Like Hallmark says, when you care enough to send the very best, I say when you care enough to speak the very best.
I love that.
That is,
Beautiful.
I think that is so important. And I'm sure you do an awful lot of work with companies that do international presentations. And there are differences in cultures, and I've been exposed to a bunch of them. One of the things I've learned is if you're not quite sure exactly what a culture expects of you, you can ask, "Do I bow? Am I doing that right? I apologize. I'm sorry if I just want to make sure that I'm fitting in. I want to make sure that I'm giving you the respect you deserve." People will help you if you ask them for it.
People love to help, don't they, Al? Exactly. You can do a ton of research ahead of time. And as you said, simply ask. I am here. I want to be sure I'm abiding by your customs, and
Yeah.
I'm showing you the most respect I can. Please show me how to interact with the folks today. It's the most lovely, respectful. You can travel the world with courtesy. Yes, every language in the world, I believe, has please, thank you, and a form of you're welcome. That means courtesy is built in. And I wonder why we're not always using that.
It's a shame. And I think the fact that you use the word use, because they are tools, that's how you build a relationship with a stranger. Little expressions like that. I rode in a cab once. It was driven by a Sikh. And I'm in New York. So in New Yorkers, you see everything. But I asked him the headdress, what does that mean? What do you call it? A lot of people I think are afraid to ask. But he pulled over, turned off the meter, and talked to me for a half an hour to explain to me what it means, why it's important to him, how he grew up. It was one of the best cab rides I've ever had. I didn't get home until 2:00 in the morning, but it was worth it because I learned about it. I mean, it was such a great, and I think he really enjoyed just being asked.
Absolutely. You showed him the ultimate respect. I want to understand. That's extraordinary. I've had some of the most amazing conversations in taxi cabs and lifts for that exact reason. We are having deep, meaningful conversations. That's a beautiful story. That's what it means to connect. I don't know you. I don't know too much about this. Would you share with me what it means to you? And why are we afraid to ask, as you said? What's going to happen? I don't know. They might say no, but chances are they want to share their story. We want to know what makes other people tick. What matters to you? We want to know.
That shows you care and it shows respect.
Yeah.
And we have another one of the shows we have on this platform is The Power of Etiquette and Manners. It's on every Friday. And we talk about emotional intelligence and how manners have never gone out of style. And manners are not how you hold a teacup. That's part of it, but it's how we treat each other, how we communicate. And I know that that's so much a part of everything that you're doing. I'm really excited for you to read from your book. If you would love to do that now.
Thanks for asking.
That'd be great.
Here she is. Isn't she beautiful?
Yes.
Very nice.
Move my fingers. There we go to camera. We launched on March 22nd. So I'm going to read from my final chapter. I called it Encore. I had to use showbiz terms in my book. So it says, I encourage you to begin to craft a different way of speaking. Your voice matters. We need you. You use your voice when speaking and writing. The voice is our original instrument. It came with you. This also means that you can change and grow your voice, personal expression, and leadership abilities, just like any other self-growth or training you invest in. You can reinvent and recreate yourself and the way you express yourself at any time. Mind your words. Your words matter. In the shamanic traditions that have been practiced on our planet for over 100,000 years, your words are indeed magic. Mind your delivery. Your delivery matters. What the world needs now is respectful, inclusive communication, civil debates. We must cultivate an ability to disagree without shaming or dominating others with an opinion. We must disagree without being disagreeable.
That's really powerful. Okay, so for people out there, that was great. It sounds like a great book. Obviously, I could up-level my communication by buying a copy of your book, but I get the feeling you work with corporate leaders. And maybe you can share with us a little bit what that experience is like. If I want my team to learn how to put their best foot forward when they're making a presentation or being introduced to a prospect or a business partner, how do I hire you, and how do you work with me to make that happen?
Thank you so much. Thank you. I still love to work with folks one-to-one. So even when I have a whole team at a company or a corporation, the key leadership, it's still one-to-one, generally speaking. That way I can get to know that particular person's style, their authentic self, because we want to be authentic and effective, because authentic might mean you yell at your people, right? So, okay, that's authentic to you, but it's not effective. It's understanding where each person is coming from. I like to first identify the good stuff. What's already working for you in the communication, in what people say to you, the feedback you're getting. And then we hone in on the things that need attention. And one of my superpowers is just immediately seeing what needs attention. So if I hear a word that doesn't match, I will immediately feel a ooh in my body. That's how sensitive I am auditorily. And I'll say that word is not the word. It's not big enough. It's not your word. It's not definite. It doesn't have purpose. So we'll dig into the words. We'll dig into the presentations. I will look at recordings of folks in action so that I can see them in the arena and see what we need to polish and fine tune. So for most of the executives and leaders, they're good at speaking. They're good at one-to-one, but they need to up-level, mature, and evolve their presence, their camera and ability to be on video, and just go from being a good speaker to an exceptional leader.
Who doesn't need that?
I know. I was just thinking everyone needs that.
How is that not a good plan?
It's a personal share, just to add on to that. When we first started when we went from rapping with Dr. JACALYN to this, I remember, Al, you said to me in the beginning, you said, why are you talking in that voice? Because I'd say, hello and welcome, like some completely weird voice that wasn't even me. And I thought that's what you were supposed to do. I thought that's what a broadcaster is supposed to do. And you said to me, no, people are watching because of you. So just be you. So that was a key learning when it came for me as a communication skill.
I love that. Sometimes we do think it needs to sound a certain way, but it's got to be the healthy and beautiful voice coming from you. And that can be developed, as we've mentioned here. If we stop comparing to others, right? Even famous singers say they don't always like their voice. But I ask my clients to make peace with your voice. Let's figure out what you like, 1 to 2 things, and then let's build that into a richer voice that you're not self-conscious about, you're not in judgment about. That's when people begin to show up differently.
How much of the work that you do with your clients one-on-one is based on their confidence level, or how they see themselves, that they've had to do some work on themselves personally? Does that apply?
So much. That's probably almost all of it. First, they've identified, I'm not comfortable on camera. I look stiff on the videos. I'm great one-to-one, but I don't know how to address the board. I can feel the terror in my body when they come around to me and I have to say my part. So it is self-awareness. They already are pretty accurate at identifying what's good, what's working, and what do we need to polish. And my goal is to get them to show up as their best, give them very simple techniques that are not always easy, but I just ask them to go test it. Go test it in the marketplace, test it on the video, test it in front of your investors, and report back to me. How did that work? Could you stay in your body better? On a scale of 1 to 10, were you more confident? And that's when the confidence and the competence, they go up like this together until we find that one day we are really, really comfortable in our own skin. We are showing up at an exceptional level, and we've just raised up to the bar, feeling so much better about our leadership and communication abilities.
Brilliant. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We've actually come to the end of our show, and I'd love to invite you to come back onto this or any of our other shows. I think the Power of Etiquette matters. I think our film and music show, since you have your experience in show business as an actor and singer, any of our shows, you have so much more to offer. And I always feel bad when we come to the end. Just know we just got to this much out of this much. So my apologies.
Well, I so appreciate that. I'd love to be on your other platforms. Yes. Yes, yeah. And yes.
Great.
Fantastic.
That'd be great.
Now, we've been showing your banners while the show's been on, but for people who can't read them or they're on the radio, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, and who would you like to contact you?
Yes, my website is my name, milunafausch.com, and that's spelled Miluna. So it's Miluna, Fausch, F like fantastic, AUSCH, milunafausch.com. My email is Dr. Miluna, no period, Dr. Miluna at milunafausch.com. You can even call me. Yes, I want to hear your voice at 831-920-1607. I want to hear from CEOs and leadership teams and organizations that are ready to uplevel the entire company, individually and group. If you're a thought leader, a mover and shaker, a CEO, an executive, a professional, I want to hear from you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We do have a comment from Christopher George. Excellent. And buying the book. How about that? Yay. Thank you so much, Christopher George.
Thank you, Christopher.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, we do. Well, Dr. Miluna, I'm so happy that we had you here today, and thank you for accepting the offer to come back again. I look forward to seeing your bookings, and you just added a lot of value and wonderful content that is for everyone.
Such a pleasure. Thanks to both of you, and thanks to everyone here with us
Thank you so much,
today.
Dr. Miluna.
Thank
Wonderful.
you. All right, we'll see you later. Thank you again. Bye-bye. Al, I learned so much from her.
There's the whole area of body language. When Dr. Miluna revisits us, I know 80% of communication is nonverbal, and I don't think people really know half the time what to do with their hands, or whether to smile or not, or whether they're smiling at all. I don't think they realize the power of some of those gestures, and I'd like to explore that with Dr. Miluna when we get her back.
I agree. And I have to say, just to be authentic, I have said, hey guys, I've got to eliminate that.
Yeah, it is pretty colloquial. And it's that's a takeaway for me.
Well, we are going to take away quite a lot from this interview and this show, and your show is coming up next. So I want to give you a few minutes to get ready as a talking head
Thank you.
expert.
I appreciate that.
You have a few minutes, but I want
it.
to put you up and also put up your banner for people to contact you. So Al, as we see here, the power of television and radio, we just had Christopher George who is watching. I think he must be new to our platform. We want to welcome him, but he's buying Dr. Miluna's book. So people are out there. They want to hear from you, Al. You want to hear from them. How do they contact you?
Easiest way to get hold of me is at my email address, al.cini, al.cini at getbcat, getbcat.com. Also be reached. We have a toll-free number, 855-999-BCAT. Happy to talk to anybody, especially on the subject of how you build teams around purpose, because that's a sweet spot and a kind of a passion for me. And in fact, that is what I'll be talking about on Talking Heads in 7 minutes.
Al, what's the phone number again, please?
855-999-BC 2228 BCAT.
Okay, I've got it. Thank you.
Great.
All right, my friend and mentor and talking head, I will see you shortly.
In 7 minutes.
7 minutes.
I'll be right back.
Okay,
thanks,
bye.
Doctor.
Thank you to everyone who's watching us on the live and for everyone who's watching on the replay. I do apologize about the 2 videos cutting out. We have never had that in all, I think, 1,000 shows now. So I'm not sure what's going on with StreamYard, but my apologies for that. As you know, we're coming back with Talking Heads featuring Al CINI. We actually have 2 additional Talking Head shows that are today as well. One is with Jean Keegan Daly, and that's at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, followed by Mariska Duprier, and that's at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So there's a lot of knowledge that's going to be shared within the next couple of hours. So please stay where you are, and I will run down to the other studio. And I really appreciate all of you, again, being here. If you'd like to be a guest on any of our shows, please go over to our website, which is usaglobaltv.com, and you can book your session there. You can watch our shows on a number of platforms, but I highly recommend that you go over to our YouTube channel. Okay, I'm going to play our closing clip with my fingers crossed that StreamYard's going to let it go through. So thank you again to all of you. Bye.